Welcome to the Innovators Insider podcast today. I am really excited about this particular episode. We have a show dedicated to the long-awaited frames functionality that is the basis for all kind of mechanical kind of machine frames and, automotive kind of frames, things like that. So, we're going to talk to a customer, Bruce Bartlett. He's been around for quite a while in the Onshape community. We'll also be bringing in a couple of the Onshape staff that had a lot to do with making the frames deployment successful, Jake Rosenfeld and Josh Newth. And we'll also do a little bit of the what's new in the last update. So we'll talk about that. So, Richard, what are you excited about for today?
Well, I'm excited for the whole show, obviously. Certainly frames has been a long time coming, and it's great that it's here. I think, of course, the first thing I thought of was framing my tiny house, and I've already begun using the frames functionality to do that. And I know, that's not really what it's intended for, but that's what I plan on using it for. We've got a great model of the week this week that shows off some of the frame functionality. And we've got a special guest that will be using the frames functionality and probably already is with his equipment. Let's go ahead and bring in our guest, Bruce Bartlett.
Yeah, g'day, guys.
Hey, welcome to the show. So Bruce is a product design engineer specializing in the design of agricultural machinery. He's also the founder of Ag Gear, an Australian company that designs and produces parts and accessories for agricultural equipment. He's also a self-proclaimed Onshape junkie. And Bruce, so that's going to be my first question. Why Onshape? What brought you to the Onshape side?
Well, it probably goes back to about 2014 when I was looking at setting up my business, and I needed some CAD software, and I'd come across some different cloud software that I thought was good, and I thought I'd go looking for some CAD that, like some cloud CAD, and I couldn't find anything. And after probably a couple of weeks of searching, I finally come up with this company. I think it was Belmont Design or something like that.
Yep.
This was very early days. Yeah. I might have that name wrong, but it was very early days, and I kept Googling it. I was interested, intrigued, and eventually I saw this website pop up, which was renamed from Belmont to Onshape, and that was where I started with Onshape.
Wow. So you've been an Onshaper for a long, long time.
A very long time, yes. I think I was that actually got me in as one of the very first. I think I was at least within the first 100 users of Onshape.
So you've seen the new functionality, I assume. Also, you've used it in some degree. What do you think so far, and what do you expect to use the frames function in the near and the distant future?
I'm really excited about the frames functionality. I've been using some of the feature script frames to get a lot of my designs out. And so, I've started playing with the frames functionality. I haven't had a project that I've really sort of dug into it on, but it's looking really good.
So, with the, probably before the frames function came out, what kinds of products were you using or are you continuing to use Onshape for in the agricultural space? Like, what would be some examples of products that you're making, or maybe some of the exciting products that come to mind over the years?
Yeah, so I make a lot of big agricultural machinery, like stuff that's towed behind tractors. So basically, you could say they're big frames that are towed along with tools on them. For planting crops, or what we call like air seeders. Okay. So you basically got a big frame that's all welded together, and then we have like the little working tools that are bolted onto that, and there's a whole heap of piping and ducting and all sorts of stuff that goes on. So frames is integral to making one of those machines come together. And I suppose I'm always looking for stuff that makes it easier. So like you got to have a custom library of all the sizes of material. So like the custom, off the shelf sizes. So, and I see that the frames has already got the Australian standard materials in there. So that makes it really easy to just basically put sketch out a skeleton and then just click on that skeleton and add all your tubes and pipes and bits and pieces in place. So it's looking really good.
So I think one of my favorite ways that we implemented the frames feature has to do with the offsets and the set of dots, and I thought that was just brilliant. What are some of your favorite things about the way we've implemented these frame structures?
Yeah, so it's just I think Onshape just has a really nice way that they go about putting stuff together. And like I've used lots of different CAD tools, over the last probably 25 years. And it's just such a joy to use Onshape in the way that the designers think about. I think it's built on like years of experience, but they really come back to the bare bones when they develop something new, and they look at how can we do this differently to make it user friendly. And yeah, like being able to, click those nodes and do the offsets and the being able to come up to butt stuff up to a face and have it trimmed and offset and a lot of those things that, as a manufacturer and designer, you want to try and put in place. You want the frames tool to be able to do that for you and not actually have to go and add extra functions on top of it. So yeah, that's what I really like basically about Onshape in general, but yeah, also it's been implemented once again in this framing feature.
We do things better.
Exactly. Yes.
We try. The something that's on my mind, Bruce, is like how do you get something from the screen that you're designing with using Onshape to manufacturing. You have very cool products and big products. So I imagine there's a lot of logistics. And do you do all of your manufacturing internally, or do you send it out, to actually be manufactured? What's that workflow like for you and your company?
Yeah. So I suppose my business, I have like a lot of different facets to my business. So Ag Gear itself, we're only like a very small company. Like there's myself and there's like I've got about 3 other people that are working for me. And so we don't do a lot of manufacturing in-house. We only do like small bits and pieces and prototypes. With the big machines that I do, that's more done on it's not necessarily Ag Gear. It's more my subcontract design engineering. So people know that I can design these machines and they come to me and I spend lots of time in front of the computer screen putting these things together. So generally those the real big machines that I've done, which just from a size point of view, like I'll do a 24 meter or an 80-foot wide machine, and that won't be that'll be subcontracted out to another manufacturer, and so to get that off, basically I just supply full sets of drawings and access to the CAD model. So the latest machine I've been doing, I've been able to give access just with a free license to the manufacturer and been able to set it up so that they can actually log into Onshape and spin it around on the screen, and they're loving that. And also, yeah, obviously DXF files, and if you need to send out a step file, you have to do that. But yeah, totally. that's how the information is generally shared. Yeah.
I like that you brought that up, and maybe for people new to Onshape that haven't experienced this before, you mentioned, sharing that to somebody on the outside. Like, maybe if you could spend like a minute or two just explaining what that process was like, and how people receive, how people are dealing with that when they receive this crazy Onshape link from you.
Yeah. Look. Over the years, it's a weird one because some people it's something that people aren't expecting, and some people get it and they don't even really use it the way that they don't use it the way you want them to use it. But I'm finding that more especially with this last project, I gave it to the guy and he wasn't CAD literate, so he didn't really know what he was doing, but he managed to click on it. And his comment was to me, "Oh, that was so useful. The only thing is I'm spending a lot of time just rotating it around on the screen. I said, well, that's always helpful. You know, if you're rotating around the screen and you're looking at the product, you're going to see something. And that, you know, he might weld a part in the wrong spot, but by having the CAD model, he's more familiar with the product, so it might stop that from happening. So, so that's been really good. So that's probably the best success story I've had with sharing models so far.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can't even imagine somebody like that. You know, they're amazed at spinning a model on the screen, and you know, how are they even going to install CAD software, install viewers, you know, even know where to even begin, you know, on something like that, right? This is obviously.
Yeah, no, it is good. I tell you, I have to say that the new link that we've put in, that you've added on the top of the screen, like the link where you can actually just directly copy it and drop that straight in. Like that is really handy because like it grabs your configuration setup. So I can give him, because I've got a heap of, because I use a lot of configurations. I've got a heap of configuration setups on this machine. So I can copy that and I know it's going to go exactly to where what I'm viewing he's going to see. So that's been really handy as well.
Yep. Sometimes it's the little things that are some of the best things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Being in Australia, you know, do you find that there's other users down there that you've been able to work with and talk to, you know, user groups, things like that? You know, what is it like using Onshape down under?
Well, it's been a great way to sort of meet people, I think. So, I got involved early on with the user group meetings, and I reached out to quite a few different users around Australia, and we got together. We got together in Melbourne. This was pre-COVID, obviously, and that was really good, being able to meet new people. And the thing is, like, people that use Onshape, you know, you generally have the same interests. That you're either interested in making things, or that's kind of like software and that maker community. And so it's been great meeting people. Within the maker and the engineering community. And I've got people. Queensland, Western Australia. So Queensland's like the top of Australia. So I've met people from up there that are Onshape users, and I've got people from Western Australia, which is completely over the other side of the country. And it's been a good way to meet people and just get excited about using CAD, which is pretty weird to some people, but I think for us, you know, we're the kind of guys that get excited about using CAD.
It's funny that you say that, because, you know, I have friends that are outside of the engineering field, and they don't really understand what CAD and what engineering is all about. But there's this subset of all of us that we're just these CAD fanatics.
Yeah.
And yes, we want to get products done, and yes, that's our emotional paycheck is getting our products out. But the process to get there is just so much fun. It's so enjoyable. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we can use CAD. We get to use CAD to do this kind of work. And you know, I've always just been fascinated. I used to tell my kids, it's like going to work and doing video games all day long, you know?
Yeah. But I think if you take that a step back, I think it's a credit to the people that put the software together as well, that they make it so enjoyable to use. Because I know some software I don't enjoy using, but Onshape is a real joy to use. So that makes a big difference.
Onshape's also made some inroads in Australia as well. You know, we have several employees down there now with the acquisition of the rendering product, and I think many of them are down in Melbourne.
That's correct. Yeah,
down there, and the render studio team. We also have some partners, channel partners. Leap Australia is down there, who's done great work to spread the word on Onshape down there. So I'm really happy that things are going. I remember the very first time we had just turned on our servers in Sydney with Amazon, and we were having a big party at the office. You know, the party involved the entire sales team, which I was a member of at the time. Just getting pizza and calling people in Australia and just spreading the word in Onshape. It was like it was the strangest party we ever had. We were drinking, we were drinking Foster's, we were eating pizza,
That's awesome. Yeah.
And we were just calling people in Australia.
Yeah.
It was late night, obviously, in Boston.
You know, that I remember that. That was pretty exciting because before that, I think we were coming out of might have been out of Singapore, and then we finally got an Australian service. So that was pretty big deal down here.
Yeah, and the back then I think the internet speeds were a little bit lower down there, and Australia was always a national kind of thing. And how is that, by the way, nowadays? How is how is it?
I don't. Definitely for using Onshape, I don't find it an issue. The only time I find it an issue is when I'm out on the road and I'm using like my mobile phone to link in, and I think that's more mobile phone service. But I don't. In my office particularly. Fine. No, there's no, Great. It's just there. It just works.
It's good to know.
Yep. Hey, it's great to hear how happy you are with Onshape, how excited you are for the frames functionality, and this has been a really good interview, and we really appreciate your time, Bruce.
No.
Anything else you'd like to add to?
Oh no, maybe? I just appreciate inviting me along, and like I said, I've been using Onshape for a long time, and I've kind of been learning every time a bit of new functionality comes in. I've been kind of learning it as I go. So this is just another thing to add to my toolkit, and I'm looking forward to really getting stuck into some projects using frames.
Well, we appreciate your time. We also very much appreciate your activities in the Onshape forums. I know a lot of people reach out to you for help, and you're quick with an answer and quick to help other users out. So we really appreciate that as well.
No problem. No, it's my pleasure.
All right. Well, thanks again, Bruce. It's been great seeing you, and we hope we get to see you again real soon.
No worries. Thanks, Richard, and thanks, Michael.
Take care.
Thanks. That's great.
I love that Australian accent, don't you?
I do. It really, it's heartwarming.
Yep.
It really is. But Bruce is a great guy, and he's done so much for Onshape over the years, I think, and it's definitely check out his work and his company. If you Google him, you'll definitely find his stuff.
So let's dig into frames a little bit more. We're going to bring in a couple of special guests from our development team. Let's bring in Joshua Newth and Jake Rosenfeld. Hello, guys.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's good.
Just hard at work, fixing bugs.
Yeah, it's the life of the developer.
That's the life.
Tracking down those bugs.
You mean fixing opportunities, right?
Yeah, you gotta wordsmith it a little bit, but keeps if I tell other engineers if everything always worked, we'd be out of jobs. So it's best if there's some amount of breakage. Keeps me employed.
Well, I want to just kind of quickly, maybe have both of you guys introduce yourselves. Kind of tell us, about yourself, what your title is, and what that title actually means. What does that job mean? And then, some interesting facts about yourself, perhaps. Feel free to, be colorful.
I guess
Let you start, Joshua.
Okay, I can go. Let's see. Well, when it comes to Onshape, I actually have quite a bit to say. So I started out using Onshape as a mechanical engineer. I was starting a company, and I was like the chief cook and bottle washer, and so I was doing a bit of everything. And I'd been practicing mechanical engineer at that point since about 2000, let's say, and had tried almost every CAD product out there, and was always like, it's I'm not seeing a reason to jump from my current solution. And then eventually I got to Onshape and was like, oh yeah, this is the future. So I immediately just switched everything over. I switched all of our CAD over to the new paradigm and never looked back. And then over the past 5 years, I've developed multiple products in Onshape and shipped multiple products. And I've unlike even some of the sales folks here, I've been CADing on the line in Shenzhen or Dongguan and like so I've really got experience using Onshape in the trenches to build product. And then when my last startup started to wrap up, I was like, well, what do I really like? What am I really passionate about? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna call the Onshape guys, see if they're hiring. So So that's how I ended up at Onshape, and now I get to contribute to the core base of my favorite tool and favorite toy in the world. So I'm a happy man.
Very nice. What's your story, Jake?
So I first started working at Onshape in 2015 in the early days. I was actually in college. I was a rising junior, rising senior summer 2015, and was told by one of my friends, like, you really have to check out this application that I worked on last summer. It's super cool, and they're going to be at our career fair. So why don't you come in and see? So I went to the career fair, and basically, like Bruce was saying earlier, somebody was just there, like, rotating a model, and that was it. It was like a really cool model. It was like some kind of spider robot that somebody had built, or maybe the 3D printed violin was there too. That was a really early model that somebody put together.
Yeah, we had Brian Chan on last week.
Yep.
We had just talked to him.
Yeah, cool. And so, yeah, I was just watching them rotate a model around, and I was like, oh, there's things that you can do, like, with graphical applications and geometry that aren't video games. That seems so cool, because I just love math, and I like playing video games, but I never really had an interest in working in them that much. And Josh actually has some experience with video games as well. But yeah, ever since then, I was kind of hooked on Onshape. I joined on, was an intern, and then eventually joined as a graphics engineer, transferred over to becoming a part studio engineer, eventually became the manager of the part studios. Right now I'm sort of working as a part studio expert, individual contributor sort of role. So yeah, I love part studios, and I love, working on Onshape, and I especially love how we've kind of set up all of our feature script stuff, because it lets engineers like me and Joshua sort of work not only just like in the depths of geometry, but also get our hands into some kind of like user experience design, and be designing the tools on our own, and not on our own, with lots of help and contribution from all over the product, but lets us kind of get our hands on user interfaces and tools kind of from beginning to end. Like, where does the user touch them? What is the user actually seeing? All the way to what does the tool actually do? How does the geometric engine execute this tool's function?
Exactly. So this frames project is, obviously a very big piece of functionality, highly requested. We've had, the Neil Cook's beams feature to kind of, hold the fort down, while the frames project was being developed, and Neil did a great job on that, and it really did help a lot of customers, get their job done. But maybe, between Jake and Joshua, maybe if you wouldn't mind telling us, what the thought process was like in doing a clean sheet of paper approach to tackle a topic that's so near and dear to engineers' hearts, like weldments and frames that, we hear about every day from the people that we talk to coming in. What was that like, trying to kind of come up with this from scratch, but also try to make it easy enough to pick up for existing people and other workflows from other systems?
Yeah, one of the big things about frames is just the amount of thought that went into it. We've been working on this project for a really, really long time. And the project actually started with one of our engineers, Elif Tosin, and she did a ton of the product engineering, and our coworker Lou helped out as well, Lou Gallo, and really, put a ton of thought into like what works with Neil's beams feature, what doesn't work, how's the performance going to work, is it going to be snappy and speedy and work for our users, and really built it from the ground up there. And eventually the project got passed to Joshua, who did a really great job on sort of picking up on with what was left off, because really what we got from that was kind of a definition of some features that we wanted to have, but we were still kind of lacking a path to what are we actually going to ship, what actually is frames, which at that point we were calling weldments, and then we ended up calling frames. But maybe Joshua can take it from there and tell us a little bit about his experience too.
Yeah, so a bit like what Jake was saying, like it was a big project for us, and a lot of people contributed. Particularly up front, there was a lot of product definition work done by Lou, who was he's the head of our support team, and he has a lot of fabrication experience. So he was using that, and you know, he has a lot of experience with sort of the other tools that are out in the industry. So he knows kind of what was on the what was in the market, and then used that knowledge and expertise to sort of steer the design. And then it fell to Alif, and then eventually to Jake and I to implement that design. But the way that I see the frames arc with, and why it's what it says about Onshape and what it says about our development practices is that, yeah, as Jake pointed out, this started out as beams. Really, we were able to. So Neil, who's I believe he's the head of technical services, he was able to identify very early on a core user need that we weren't able to address in like the full fat Onshape experience. But he was able to write feature script. So, you know, anybody can do that. Like, that's open. It's 100% open to all of our customers, and all of our users, I should say, even free accounts. And he was able to meet that need early on. And then we were able to take all of the experience of putting that in front of people, getting their feedback, incorporating it into the final product. So I really think what Frame says about our development process is that because of our core technology stack, we are able to both quickly address user need, but also get there to the finish line with a product that is like maybe more measured and more thought out. Like I think I was listening to what Bruce was saying about how Onshape does things so that they're delightful to use, they're pleasurable to use. Like it's true that you pick up Onshape and it frames feels like an Onshape product, and because it is, and it's done to that same standard. So it's kind of like, I think we did pretty well with frames, but also it's because we're building on such an amazing core technology foundation with feature script, which really, you know, a sufficiently motivated user could have written frames for us instead of the other way around, which is very inspiring to me. And that reminds me of one funny anecdote. As soon as we shipped frames, I was like, phew, that was a lot of work, big sigh of relief. And then there was Onshape Live, and immediately there was a forum post. Well, thanks guys, but frames doesn't work quite the way I want it. I'm going to change it. And after I was like totally stunned, but then I actually was like, that's wonderful. That's absolutely fantastic. I can't think of a better outcome than our users being able to take our tools that we built for them with their input and build on our tools to make something for themselves. It put a smile on my face after I got past my
like, yeah, this is my baby. You know, it works perfect. You know, who else would want anything different, right? But obviously,
exactly.
it's definitely, you know, every company is different. There's always something that we haven't thought of. You know, if that was the case, you know, CAD would have been done 30 years ago, and you know, we wouldn't be working at Onshape. You know.
Well, you know, and I have a pretty good example too. I'm pretty sure during the development process, you guys weren't thinking about framing tiny houses, but I found the frames functionality to be outstanding in that effort. And I got to tell you, the nodes that you use for orientation and movement, just absolutely brilliant. I just absolutely love that.
Yeah, I'll just bring something up here on the screen so people, you know, if they're following it on YouTube.
Oh, this is going to be our model of the week too, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, this is the model of the week. This is Greg Brown, I think, modeled this with Jay and maybe some other folks on the team. But you know, these are the little node points that you know, that you can work with to shift over the orientation. You even have you can even this is a round profile, so it's a round. You can't see it, but
yeah. But I see the change.
Yeah, you saw it happening.
The first time I saw those, I didn't even have to go anywhere to know what those were. I knew exactly what those nodes were for right away. I mean, it was just painfully obvious when I saw that.
Exactly. And I really like the way that, this is a great example of, the power and the flexibility of the frames function. Greg did a great job, obviously, kind of planning this document out with some nice, variables here and the new variable table stuff with the nice descriptive terms, of course, that drive a lot of things. And then he built a great skeleton. A great skeleton is the first part of making a great frame system. It can be a combination of 2D elements like this, or even parts that, are kind of skeleton models, right? So like, let me just select these two here and isolate them. You can see right here, this is a very clever technique. I used to use this in other CAD systems in the past too, but just creating a solid representation volume and even splitting the surfaces up of that, because, it makes it very easy to create these advanced kind of three-dimensional, non-orthogonal kind of segments, right? So being able to just use those objects as a basis or a framework, if you will, of the model. Great idea here. But the other thing that I thought was quite interesting was how we arrived at the trimming functions. And this I feel is really revolutionary. I don't know if you guys want to comment on this, Joshua or Jake, but this was the kind of like, E equals MC squared moment, like for me, like, taking something like this, which has so many different possibilities for how you would want to trim that, right? That could be a lot of work, especially if you were going to do them like on the fly, one at a time, as you're putting the frame pieces in. Having this ordered kind of trim functionality. And let's see, you can see here we're using the ordered groups, where you can parametrically kind of set an order for the system to kind of help you trim instead of like picking faces and edges. You're letting the system pick logical groups of things to trim to, which is much smarter, much more robust, I think, especially if designs change. Not that would ever happen, right? But it's really quite remarkable that this particular trimming workflow. Maybe you guys could tell us a little bit more about that, if you had anything to add there. What was the thought process of this particular part of it?
Yeah, sure. Jake and we spent about a half hour, and the first thing we thought of worked perfectly. So, yeah, that took a lot of doing, actually. But really, the credit belongs to Lou and Alif for identifying that this was a preferable way of managing the complexity of the geometric work. And then a lot of my contribution and Jake's contribution was like figuring out how to make these good ideas actually work.
Hard part.
So because I think what Lou and Alif identified was that in other packages, or if you're just doing these as Boolean operations, you would be often left with a whole lot of remnants, right? The little trimmed ends that are floating around inside the tube. Maybe they come in at a funny angle, so then you have to do a Boolean of this against this, and then both of these against a third. And I think they quickly realized that that a better way was needed. The reason I like it is because it's the same reason that I like so much of Onshape. When I started using Onshape, what really appealed to me about the product is that it lets me CAD the way that I think, and I think about that a lot in some of the design of our tools, and certainly frame trim kind of works the way I think, because I have the CAD doesn't know, oh, this is a main strut, you don't want to mess with that one, let's not chop into that. And this one's the pillar that's really going to protect our head in the event of a roll, so let's not mess with that one either. But these side ones, these are for back and forth, it's okay. Mm-hmm. But it's very hard to make a CAD program smart enough to do that. So what we do is we make the tools smart enough so that people can very quickly express their design intent. And that's why I think Onshape, and particularly like the frame trim, feels so nice and yeah, coming back to that word, delightful to use, because it's working the way you think it should work. And it's always satisfying when things do that. Too often with software, they don't. They work some other way, which you can eventually puzzle out. But Onshape kind of, you turn it on and it works the way that you think it should. So
the other part that I'd love to hear your commentary on is, actually getting this stuff made, right? And if you look at this, we have a cut list, actually 2 cut lists, which is pretty interesting if you think about it. 1 part studio with 2 different cut lists. In this case, it obviously makes a lot of sense to manufacture maybe the base, versus the other portion on the top, the roll cage and the chassis base, right? And you can see that there are 2 separate kind of distinct groups of cut lists that have been developed, and just kind of give people watching an idea of how that works. It's not like brain surgery to do this. It's you just kind of go in and you select your frames, and that's the cut list for that grouping that I just selected. I mean, instantly, just like that. It's insanely fast, and being able to do that with multiple groups, because you might manufacture those as 2 separate cut lists, and you might actually make another detailed drawing of this, of just that portion of it with its own cut list. You might divide and conquer, right? So what was that process like, coming up with the actual manufacturing information to help people make this stuff?
So I think cut list is kind of a really good example of how we try to innovate here. So when we see something like when we have the old beams feature, what we typically do when we're saying, okay, this is a need, it's being partially filled, what else could it need? And what we could have done was taken it, cleaned it up, made the code nice and snappy, and just introduced it into our product. Because, at the end of the day, it was written by one of our employees, and it could just have been an internal tool. But what we kind of did is, over time, we tend to gather information about, like, what do people actually need? And cut list is a really good example of, like, what do people need? Well, people need, standards, descriptions, they need lengths of everything, and they need them presented in a tabular format if we want to actually have this be part of the product. So what that ended up landing us with was the cut lists and also the tag profile feature. And I think I'm going to go off topic a little bit here, but we're actually, if I can just tease something a little bit, we're very excited about the prospects of both the tag profile and the cut list, and sort of all of this data that surrounds the weldment's functionality. When you go and you make a frame, you'll see now Onshape has added a bunch of standards for profiles for frames. But one of the driving kind of ethoses that we had here when we were working was, there's absolutely no way that we're ever going to be able to capture every single frame that every user could ever want. And this is both just like some knowledge that people are saying, oh, there's so many frame profiles, but also knowledge that we've kind of gathered from the whole feature, that there are lots of different types of things that people want, and we can't necessarily satisfy everybody's needs. So what I'll say is, there's a lot of cool stuff coming here, and we certainly don't plan on only having Onshape custom frame profiles. And the way that we build our technology is we try to make it as generic as possible. So when we were creating this frame profiles dialog, there's a ton of code behind that that actually lets users create all sorts of generic libraries of stuff, be it frame profiles, be it fasteners, be it anything else that you can just take and create, like my company's library of clips. I don't know, clips that attach two things together. So we're really looking forward to some of the functionality behind that's come behind this, the frames functionality. And as another small example of that, People remember that we released custom tables a little while ago. Custom tables was actually another thing that was driven by weldments. So the reason that we have custom tables at all is because we needed something like that we needed a simpler solution that supported both the whole table and the weldments table. So we have a lot of the like driving factors here are really intertwined in a way that a user might not realize.
Well, that's exciting. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I think that last little speech got our customers pretty excited too. So
thanks. Well, I think this was great, team, and thank you so much for making all of this happen. Between all the people, Lou, Ella, all the other people involved, Neil, obviously, the customers that participated, and this is really a big moment that that people can use this and get parts manufactured out to manufacturing. Every machine, everything is based on frame-based elements. So we really can't thank you enough for joining us today, and we'll discuss the last what's new update as well before the end of the podcast here. Anything else, Richard, that you wanted to add?
no, I think we've covered it all. Again, Joshua, Jake, thank you very much for coming on. It was a very interesting talk. Like I say, I'm using the frames functionality a little bit differently than other people might be, but I'm exercising it as hard as I possibly can. So hopefully I'll be able to share that document at a future podcast.
That's good to hear. I hope it serves you well. And just like with all of our customers, keep those bug reports coming in. That's how we improve. So
you betcha.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
See you later. All right. Well,
that was a great interview, huh?
Yeah. I mean, really makes me want to wake up and come in to work, with that attitude that we have at the company. Yep. It really makes me feel good about where I am working.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Maybe for the final couple minutes, we can just go over what was released. And,
I've got a couple of my favorites.
Let me add this.
There we go. March 14th, which means we're about due for another one here real quick.
We are
looking forward to that.
It's in the oven right now. I'm excited for that one too, but we'll talk about that next time.
Yep. And there's my first one that I liked so much, and that is dissolving the replicate groups. Replicate is a great piece of functionality. I love this video because it shows a little bit of both. But up until now, we didn't have the ability to go ahead and, I guess you would dissolve or, kind of explode that replicate group.
Right. Yeah. There are times where you want to like break that association or for whatever reason,
Yep.
But obviously, we updated replicate recently, so it would be really nicely parametrically built without the need for knowing the underlying geometry or even having it being feature based underneath, which was revolutionary in that sense. But now we can do the full round trip, turn that into its own sub-assembly like he did right there. I think Roy was the person, Roy Metallic, on our technical services team.
Yep, that's very nice.
Yeah.
Who's this one yet?
This one was really good. I use this one all the time when I'm like, in an assembly and I want to see like what's behind another object. I'll hit the letter Y on my keyboard and, it will expose what was behind there. So if you hit the letter Y, now we can kind of go into the case there, into the assembly here and see what's there. But, bringing it back would require you to kind of go back to the instance list here in the assembly. But now you can kind of hold the shift key and the letter Y at the same time and hover over kind of where you think that part was.
Yep.
So, and that's consistent with some other kind of CAD systems and the way they've done it. So it's a pretty easy thing for people to pick up on. I know drawings are always your favorite thing. Richard.
I think our listeners probably know that by now. Yes, drawings are always my favorite. I'm a big fan of standards. You know, I started my career on the drafting board, and frankly started my career in high school learning about drafting standards. You know, my immediate reaction to overrides is one of trepidation, if you will. But I've learned over the last 25 years that I'm not the only one that does things my way. There are people that do things a lot of different ways, and a lot of different companies do things a lot of different ways. So, you know, anytime we can give somebody the ability to override or modify or set up a standard that is unique to them, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Yeah, like here, it's kind of nice. You know, they really wanted to call attention to the height and width dimensions, so they put it in a different color, different font, right? And it really just kind of calls it out.
Yep.
Short and sweet video there. This one, obviously quite nice. I won't play the animation, but obviously this is much better.
I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
I mean, you could obviously have gone in and kind of set your own scale factors for all the hatch patterns before, but you know, it's a little bit of work. So this is much nicer. It's much more automatic. This one I find to be interesting, Richard, on the data management side.
I do too, and this really shows where Onshape shines in the data management arena. Because if you know, with other CAD systems, to keep a drawing view of a past version or an earlier version would require a couple of different files, I think. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Onshape, you know, again, it's one source of truth.
Yeah, it kind of requires that C:\neurosurgery to
exactly
try to kind of do this in other systems. But because of the embedded version control information in the system, these kind of things are actually kind of easy for us to do. You know, how many times have you had like egg on your face when you opened up a drawing in the other CAD system and things have changed that you didn't expect, things like that, right?
Yep.
You know, pinning a reference here is an informal kind of way of, you know, locking it to a certain version for a short time before you get to a release or something, you know?
Yeah, you can't change that yet. We're still selling it.
Exactly. So those kind of situations, there's myriad situations where this will come in handy, but I think, you know, during the development process, R&D phase, this will come in handy. And then, you know, we obviously have other ways of locking down the drawing for releases, you know, using our Onshape Professional and Enterprise release management system. This one I found to be like, I was shocked that we could actually do this.
Yeah.
Just bang, automatic center lines on everything on a drawing.
Well, you know, and I think maybe the best part about this improvement is, you know, when the release came out, there were a couple of customers that found some issues that they had with it. We fixed those issues within days.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and everybody in the world had the fix.
Yep.
So yeah, a number of other kind of small things, and these aren't small things if you need these, right? But
they're not when you're trying to produce a quality drawing. These are very important things.
Yeah, like this makes, you know, like Richard and I, we go back to the drafting board days. Like we would always do this kind of thing on a drafting board. I would imagine, you know, giving it a nice little extension, you know, breaking things nicely, things like that.
Yes, the render studio improvements, being able to actually move parts and then create another render scene. So, I mean, my first thought was, okay, now I can render the outside of my tiny house and I can open the front door and render it again.
Yeah. You can actually rotate the actual assembly for the house, right? You know, so it can fit within the scene, you know, the right way that you want it to look at. So it's and there's also many other good reasons for this. Like, see this nice little exploded view that he's kind of building on the fly here, you know, pulling up that, rotating it out, you know, it's really a nice kind of presentation. And you wouldn't want to like do this in the CAD model necessarily, because you're not going to ever have a representation of that where you're selling it with that open position, pulling it out. It's kind of nice being able to have a little autonomy as an artist when you're in the render studio to take some liberties where you need to. You might need to scale, rotate, things like that to get the scene to look the way you want as an artist, as a virtual photographer.
Well, I took a lot of advice from Rob Rodriguez on the podcast just a couple episodes ago, and I'm looking at doing renderings a little bit different, all based on the tips that he provided. So really excited about Render Studio, and I look forward to using it more and more.
Great.
All right.
Anything on the user groups?
Yes. So I think I probably mentioned it on the podcast probably several times. I've been going to get a survey out for several weeks now, and it's out. So it's been going for about a week. We've got a pretty good ones. We're going to leave this survey open for a couple more weeks. We're trying to find out what you want in user group meetings. We're looking at a lot of different things. So, whether or not you've ever attended a meeting, whether you have never heard of Onshape user groups, we'd love to hear your input. And we're constantly trying to improve our user group meetings. So far, what I'm seeing is that our Onshape users prefer the shorter meetings that we've been doing lately, the 1 hour meetings with one session. It's a little bit split between after work and during work hours. So hopefully that goes one way or another, or maybe that turns into 2 user group meetings a week, one during the day and one a little bit later in the evening. Some of the top sessions that people are voting for are obviously tips and tricks. But our customers also want to see a lot more user presentations. So we'll certainly be going after some of our top users and asking them to share their knowledge and share their tips at a user group meeting. So we'll look forward to that. We'll put the link to the SurveyMonkey to the survey here in the comments. And I would appreciate it if everybody would take, it's just a 3 to 5 minute survey. It's real quick. It's very anonymous. And we're sure looking forward to the results. So
great.
And speaking of sessions and user groups and presentations, let's not forget that the Onshape Live 22 sessions are still on demand. So if you created an account and we're watching Onshape Live, you can go right back and use that same account to watch the sessions that you might have missed. If you didn't get a chance to attend and haven't registered, it's simply register, and you'll be able to access all of those on-demand sessions.
Great. Well, that was a great show, Richard.
It sure was.
Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, or subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. We really do appreciate it. It really helps the show out to do that. And we look forward to having everybody next time. I really want to thank Bruce again. Bruce, maybe you can say hi again here.
Let's bring Bruce back.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm about to start my day's work here, so I'm a little bit different opposite end of the day to you guys.
Well,
So
enjoy
looking
your
forward to
day.
getting into some Onshape models.
Change the world. Make it a better place. Thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's been awesome.
Awesome. And Richard?
Hey, next time we've got a show lined up. We're going to be talking about the Onshape Ambassador Program, and we're going to give our Onshape ambassadors in to talk about them, what they think of it, what they do, and how it all got started. We've got Sam Holland is confirmed, and we're looking for a couple more of the ambassadors to come on. So that should be a good show as well.
Excellent. That'll be great.
All right. Great show, Michael.
Yes, indeed. Same bat
see
time, same bat channel.
We'll see everybody next time.
All right.